Good evening, professionals. Today, in the light of our recent updates on corporate law, we are going to discuss about the recent changes in the takeover provisions. Part 1, we will deal with the takeover provisions provided in unlisted companies, and Part 2, we will deal with the significant amendments made during the recent months in listed companies. Thanks to Mr. Sundar for this presentation. These are various legends used in today's presentation, where we will be dealing with chapter 15, which is Companies, Compromise Arrangements and Amalgamation Rules 2016, and this long pending notification under section 230, which deals with compromise and arrangement, is notified effective 3rd Feb 2020, and which makes another avenue open for majority shareholders to squeeze out the minority shareholders. We all are aware that under Companies Act, we have several provisions where the majority shareholders squeeze out minority shareholders, like your buyback provisions under section 68, your consolidation of shares under section 61, subsection 1, clause B of the Companies Act. You have your reduction of share capital under section 66, where an application could be made to NCLT for unpaid share capital reduction, or where there is additional capital which is not reflecting your assets, or more for squeezing out your minority shareholders. Over and above that, you have similar provisions in compromise arrangement itself. So already we had section 235 and 236, which we'll be going to discuss today. In addition to that, section 230 subsection 11 and 12 are notified, which makes it another avenue for majority shareholders squeezing out the minority shareholders. NCLT. Yes, the NCLT rules, which provide an application to be made for such takeover by unlisted companies under Rule 80A, is notified effective 3rd Feb 2020. Along with that, where there is an aggrieved party because of this takeover, where there is a grievance for a minority shareholder, he could represent by making an application to the tribunal, which is also included in the NCLT rules. And hence we will be dealing with the relevant amendments made to NCLT rules today. Then in part 2 of today's webinar, where the SAST regulation we will be covering. So for listed entities, when there is an acquisition, then they are well covered under the provisions of SEBI Substantial Acquisition of Shares and Takeover Regulations, read with Securities Contract Regulations. Along with this, we will also deal with the other provisions where tribunal refers to, we know that it is NCLT. So the structure of today's presentation will be overview with takeover provisions recently which are notified under Companies Act, various compliance aspects to it, and additional provisions which are already available under Companies Act prior to this notification, which are as set out under 235 and 236, read with relevant rules. Key definitions under SEBI SAST, which will be pertinent in the light of recent amendments under SEBI SAST and the Companies Act, because SEBI definitions are again drawn reference to Companies Act as far as person acting in control or acquirer are concerned. Hence, those key definitions will be reviewed today. With this background, let's understand the overview of this recent amendment. We all are aware that section 230 deals with compromise or arrangement made between company and its creditors and or members. 230 subsection 11 and 12 make key governing takeover rules for unlisted companies, which are notified effective 3rd Feb 2020, and already provisions are available under 235 and 236. But it is interesting to note that 230, 235, 236, the similarity is majority shareholders squeezing out minority shareholders, takeover provisions, compromise or arrangement. but there is difference in terms of each section, in terms of applicability, approach, and procedural aspects to it. So while reading and understanding each provision, we will also discuss the comparative provisions and aspects to 230 vis-a-vis 235 and 236. And kindly stop me if you have any questions or clarification related to this subject. 230 subsection 11 deals with any compromise or arrangement to also include takeover offer as prescribed in Rule 3 of Companies Compromise Arrangement Rules. In case of listed entities, yes, the specific provisions of SEBI SAS takeover regulations will be squarely applicable. And if there is an agreed party, this grievance can be represented before NCLT in such manner as prescribed, and which is as prescribed in Rule 80A of NCLT rules as notified effective this date. Tribunal may, on an application, pass such order as it may deem fit. So 11 talks about the application for takeover. 12 talks about an application if you are agreed by the order as a minority shareholder. It is pertinent to note that under 230(12), the nature or the parameters which will be taken into cognizance while reviewing this agreed party's application by the tribunal are not provided for. The above provisions are notified effective 3rd Feb, which we already discussed, and these provisions under 11 and 12 we have to do along with the complete set of provisions which are as provided under 230, which means an application which is made for conducting a meeting, or when there is 90% approval of members or creditors, which leads to dispensation of the meeting, and if there is no approval provided by 90% of the members for dispensation of the meeting, then application to the NCLT calling for ordering of convening such meeting of members creditors for approval, and members creditors according sanction holding 3/4 in value for providing sanction for this compromise or arrangement, and application made again to the tribunal for approval with regard to the scheme of compromise or arrangement. Everything will prevail for 230 subsection 11 and 12 as well. So please remember, friends, the key provisions and the procedural norms as enshrined in the charging section 230 will also squarely apply for 230(11) while you make an application for takeover offer. And hence, the simultaneous application which has to be made to all the other regulators and authorities like your Income Tax Authority, CCI, Competition Commission of India, RBI if it is an NBFC, SEBI if it is a listed company, and ROC, central government where the power is now delegated to regional director, all such provisions will squarely apply for takeover provision as well. The compliance procedures are as set out in Rule 3. There are these additional provisions inserted under Rule 3.5 for Section 230(11) where you make an application for takeover, and Rule 3 sub Rule 6 for making an application with regard to agreed party before tribunal. So 3.5 says that a member of the company shall make an application for takeover under 230(11) when such member along with any other member holds at least 75% of shares in the company. So this is important to be noted, friends. Here, there is a minimum shareholding requirement to make this takeover offer of 75%. Whereas if you read 235, there is no minimum shareholding requirement. However, 90% shareholders assent is there. Also in 236, you have this minimum shareholding requirement. So this is the comparative chapter. So such application has been filed for acquiring any part of the remaining shares. So where the acquirer is intending to acquire the remaining part of the minority shareholding, and the acquirer holds the eligibility criterion of minimum 75% of shares in the company. And there is another key criterion prescribed in the rule which says shares means equity shares carrying voting rights and includes any other security which entitles the holder for carrying voting rights, including such as depository receipts, they say, which means only shares with voting rights are provided here, and the concomitant rights are provided to any other security which has this prerogative of voting right, which means your CCDs or CCPS, if they have voting right as per your contractual term, yes, then they will fall under this takeover rule. Otherwise, they will not be covered under the entitlement. Two, if there is preference share and where you are not providing them dividend for 2 years, then they will carry voting right by virtue of the provision and hence they will fall under the takeover rule, otherwise not. Or in the recent past, we have seen a lot of hybrid instruments or convertible instruments which are given more for the purpose of inviting investors for making investment in the company. In such cases, if they don't carry voting right, then they will not be entitled to opt for takeover. And exclusion is provided for any transfer or transmission made by virtue of a contract or succession because of your inheritance or in terms of any statutory or regulatory requirement. Tomorrow there is this RBI requirement pursuant to which you are obligated to make this particular transfer. Then it will not be falling under this particular section 230 subsection 11, and the fee for making such application is 5,000 rupees. Rule 3 sub rule 6 deals with the valuation, which is very important. We all have seen in the cardinal principle, the landmark judgment, where the Bombay High Court clearly held that the valuation report shall be fair and reasonable, which was as provided in Cadbury India Limited case. And the report of the registered valuer disclosing the details of the valuation of shares proposed to be acquired shall consider the following factors, which are the highest price paid during the last 12 months, fair price of shares determined by the registered valuer after taking into consideration these valuation parameters like your price earning multiples, EPS, book value, and such other parameters which are necessary for computing your valuation of shares. So the landmark judgment Cadbury principle is taken into consideration as far as the highest price is paid during the last 12 months and the fair and reasonable price to be arrived at, so that your minority shareholders are not deprived of the benefit. However, we have to wait and watch if NCLT is going to take into consideration factors such as prospective transactions or prospective profitability of the company. Say, for example, the takeover is happening today and the shareholders, the majority shareholders are already aware of some near future profit which the company is going to make, and pursuant to which they are making this particular offer where the minority shareholders may not be getting the benefit and they will be deprived of this pecuniary benefit of the prospective profitability. So all these factors we have to wait and watch whether NCLT will take these into consideration. And in this case, it is also important to note that in Sadhvik India Limited case, where the division bench of the Bombay High Court clearly held in favor of this takeover rule, which clearly said that the non-promoter shareholders, when they have fair and reasonable valuation done, and when the non-promoter shareholders are interested in such transaction, that the court will not be standing as a stumbling block by not, not voting for the resolution, which means when the transaction is going to be in the interest of minority shareholders, then the court will be certainly in favor of them and not against them, is what the rule was provided in Sandvik's case. Details of the bank account to be opened separately by a member, wherein at least 50% of the total consideration, which is the takeover consideration, shall be deposited. Again, the timeline is not set out or clearly mentioned in the rule, which means while you obtain the approval of the members with regard to this takeover, then such deposit shall be made. Point number 1, which means your deposit is going to lie idle in the account and you have to wait until NCLT clears your takeover transaction, which means it will be lying idle in your account without being deployed. And one more thing is, in this particular deposit, it could have been better if they had mentioned any other deposit by way of bank guarantee rather than making it mandatory for opening a separate bank account and depositing cash. And Rule 80A of NCLT rules says that the application in NCLT 1 with the prescribed fee of 5,000 shall also be accompanied by your affidavit verifying the petition, memorandum of appearance, along with the board resolution, ideally or wakalatnama, authorizing a person to represent this particular case before your tribunal, and documents in support of grievance against the takeover. Here, documents in support of grievance, they have not emphasized the factors or parameters which will be taken into consideration by NCLT by reviewing the aggrieved party's contention. So we have to wait and watch. Any other relevant document which shall be accompanied to be made by the aggrieved party before the tribunal. So 230, 11 and 12 are welcoming provisions under the Act, long-awaited provisions which are notified and good for unlisted entities to have an avenue for the majority shareholders to squeeze out the minority shareholders over and above the existing provisions. And 236 or 235 is an extensive, time-consuming, long-drawn process. We have to hope that 230 subsection 11 and 12 make it simpler and the process shall also not be that time-consuming. 235, which deals with the power to acquire shares of dissenting shareholders out of a scheme or contract which is approved by majority. So we already discussed that there is no minimum shareholding prescribed under 235. However, there shall be assent given by 90% of the shareholders. So in case of a transferee company which is intending to acquire the shares of the transferor company, assent shall be given by at least 90% of the shareholders, and the timeline is within 4 months of making such offer by the transferee company. And here the exclusion will be the shareholders of the transferee, nominees of the transferee company or its subsidiary company. And once an approval from shareholder is obtained with regard to such transfer, the transferee company within 2 months after the expiry of the 4 months of making such offer for interested in acquiring the shares shall give notice to the dissenting shareholders in Form CAA 14 that it intends to acquire the shares of the dissenting shareholders. So who are dissenting shareholders, friends? They are those shareholders who have not assented, who have not granted vote in favor of this resolution, or who have failed or refused to transfer the shares to the transferee company in accordance with the scheme. And what is the remedy available for dissenting shareholders? Within 1 month, they may make an application to the tribunal. Here it is imperative to note that here there is a timeline given for the aggrieved party. Within 1 month, they shall make a representation. However, in 23011 to 23012, where aggrieved party makes an application, there is no such timeline stipulated. Maybe until it is clearly provided in CAA rules or NCLT, we may have to take the law of limitation, which is within a period of 3 years. Or if the tribunal disposes of the application by the dissenting shareholder, stating that this is more in favor of the majority shareholder, then the transferee company shall initiate the process by sending the transfer deed and the notice to the transferor company expressing its intention to acquire the shares, and more importantly, by making the necessary purchase consideration effected and representing the price payable by the transferee company. The transferor company, upon receipt of this purchase consideration and upon receipt of the notice plus the instrument evidencing the transfer, shall register the transferee in the holders of the register of members, and within 1 month from the date of registration, inform the dissenting shareholders of the fact of such registration being given effect to, and the other consideration representing the price payable to those dissenting shareholders. And money, again here in this dissenting shareholders case also, shall be paid into a separate bank account and shall be disbursed to those shareholders within a period of 60 days. So here, similar to your 23012, where a separate bank account shall be provided for depositing the money shall be paid by the transferor company into a separate bank account, and there is also a timeline prescribed under 235. 236 talks about purchase of minority shareholding. So if we compare it with 23011 and 235, here the minimum shareholding is stipulated, which is 90%. In the event of acquirer or pack, again, acquirer or person acting in concert, the regulation clearly draws reference to your SEBI SAST regulations. Minimum shareholding which shall be held by this acquirer or pack shall be at least 90%, or in the event of such person or group of persons becoming 90% majority or holding 90% of the issued shares in the company by virtue of either scheme of amalgamation, share exchange or conversion of securities, they shall notify their intention to buy the remaining shares, which means the majority shareholders purchasing the minority shareholders' interest. Here, there shall be a valuation done by a registered valuer. And the first one, point number 1, talks about acquirer or person acting in concert, the group of persons buying the equity shareholders of those minority people, which shall be at a price determined by a registered valuer. Or 2 talks about the minority shareholders suo motu interested in such particular transaction of purchase by the majority shareholders. Here again, there is a reference drawn to the price as determined by the registered valuer under section 236. So the majority shareholders shall deposit such value as arrived at by the registered valuer in a separate bank account to be operated by the company whose shares are being transferred for at least 1 year for payment to the minority shareholders. So the money shall lie in that account for a period of 1 year, and such amount shall be dispersed within 60 days. So 1 year is an additional concept brought in 236, which is not there in 230(11) or 235. But 60 days is similar to your 235, where the amount shall be dispersed within a period of 60 days. And companies whose shares are being transferred shall act as share transfer agent for doing twin scope of action. 1, for payment of the purchase consideration, and 2, for payment of the purchase consideration after they receive it from the transferee company to all those minority shareholders, and 2, for executing the transfer in favor of the transferee company. And the price for listed entities, no doubt they have to take reference to SEBI takeover regulations. For unlisted companies, it shall be again your highest price in line with your Cadbury principle, which is again as provided in your 230(11), highest price paid during the last 12 months. And fair price to be determined by registered valuer, again after taking into consideration similar to your 230(11), your return on net worth, book value, EPS, price earning multiples. And registered valuer shall also provide this valuation report addressed to the board of directors, giving justification for arriving at such valuation. So these are the key amendments brought in 230 subsection 11 and 12 as far as unlisted companies are concerned. SEBI SAST regulation on 29 July 2019, there were 3 amendments brought in. We will discuss it primarily with regard to the encumbrance of shares, the disclosures to be made relating to that, and exemption with regard to public announcement to be made. So the charging provision, we all are aware, under SEBI SAST regulation is regulation 3 and 4 with regard to public announcement to be made when the prescribed thresholds are crossed by the acquirer and person acting in concert. We also have studied that regulation 10, which talks about the general exemption from such companies making public announcement in certain instances, and regulation 11, which talks about exemptions granted by board. Board is SEBI for making such public announcement while making such open offer. So here there is additional exemption provided under regulation 10 by virtue of this amendment, which was brought in effect on 29 July 2019. Related to these exemptions, whatever is the reference drawn in the key definition regulation 2 of SEBI SAST, we are going to discuss before we discuss in detail about those 3 relevant exemptions. Who is an acquirer? A person who directly or indirectly acquires or agrees to acquire either by himself or along with the person acting in concert, either A, shares, or B, voting rights, or C, the control over the target company. let's understand which a target company. It is a body corporate or a corporation established under central legislation, state legislation, or provincial legislation, and whose shares are more importantly listed on a stock exchange. Person acting in concert is those persons who act with a common objective or purpose for what? For acquisition of shares or voting rights. And which is very important is directly or indirectly making the scope of this person acting in concert definition very wide pursuant to an agreement or understanding. Such acquisition of shares or voting rights or exercise of control, which is again similar to your definition as provided in acquirer. And person deemed to act in concert, there is a big list as provided in the definition where company, holding company, subsidiary company, or companies under the same management will fall under the person deemed to act in concert. Companies, directors, and persons entrusted with the management of the company. Directors of the companies referred in 1 and 2, which is your holding, subsidiary, or companies under same management, or directors entrusted with the management, key people who are interested in the management of affairs of the company. Promoters, promoter group. Again, the definition of promoter group. Under SARS regulation, they draw reference to your SEBI issue of capital disclosure requirement regulations, immediate relatives, mutual funds, collective investment schemes, alternate investment funds, portfolio managers, bankers, and bankers, they have provided a caveat that if the bank is going to do it in the ordinary course of business, then they will not be considered as persons acting in concert. Likewise, for investment company or fund, there not less than 10% of the paid up capital is the limit prescribed. However, it shall not apply to holding of units of mutual funds. Associate for the purpose of this investment company or fund will mean any immediate relative or trust or firm or HUF members. An immediate relative for the purpose of this regulation will mean spouse, parents, brother, sister, child of such person or of spouse. The recent amendments in the context of these definitions are 1. The general exemption under regulation 10. Any increase in voting rights beyond the threshold limit as provided in regulation 3, where it clearly says that if you cross the prescribed limit, then the public announcement shall be made. So even if you cross the limit as provided in the charging section of regulation 3, pursuant to such conversion of equity shares with superior voting rights into ordinary shares, then it shall be exempted from making this public announcement for open offer. So regulation 3 deals with your substantial acquisition of shares or voting rights where the threshold norm is prescribed. And regulation 28, clearly the definition of encumbrance is widened. If you understand the rationale, the SEBI, after the outcome of the board meeting in which this particular regulation amendment was discussed, clearly said that in order to lift certain ambiguities, while promoters draw clear reference to encumbrance while raising funds from NBFCs or mutual funds, in order to circumvent that particular loophole, there were a lot of encumbrances which were happening. So, to arrest that particular thing, the scope of the definition of encumbrance has been widened. And here, if you see the disclosure which is being made by listed entities, the details of encumbrances along with the purpose of encumbrances will be provided, which makes it well safeguarding the interest of investors to understand why the promoters have made such encumbrance. So encumbrance previously draws reference only to pledge, lien or any transaction by whatever name called. But now the scope is enhanced, which clearly says any restriction on free or marketable lien to any shares or pledge lien, negative lien. So what is negative lien? So if there is a right held by the lender and some transaction which prevents him from creating any encumbrance on his assets or disposal of the assets will be construed as a negative lien. It also includes non-disposal undertaking. So what is non-disposal undertaking is again an undertaking given by the borrower to the lender ensuring that the shares given as collateral would not be transferred or encumbered. So it provides a clear lien on the lender, and he will not be entitled to do any other transaction or create pari passu charge over such lien. So it is marked clearly only for that lender. So that is non-disposal undertaking. Or it also includes any covenant, condition or arrangement in the nature of encumbrance, again directly or indirectly. So the scope of this particular definition of encumbrance is widened under Regulation 28, and the disclosure norms, there is an insertion made under Regulation 31, where previously under Regulation 31, you were obligated to inform with regard to your promoter along with PAC for any invocation or release of encumbrance to the stock exchange where the shares are listed. Additionally, now 31 Regulation 4 is introduced effective 29 July 2019, which makes it mandatory for the promoter on yearly basis to declare along with person acting in concert that he has not made any encumbrance during the financial year. So over and above your declaration for invocation or release or creation of encumbrance, which is provided under 31(2), 1, 2 and 3. 31(4) talks about the annual declaration or comfort given to the stock exchange that you have not made any other encumbrance during the financial year. And such declaration, the time is within 7 days from the end of each financial year you have to disclose, and it shall be submitted to stock exchange and the audit committee of the target company. And here it is imperative to note that due to the outbreak of COVID, there is an extension granted for Regulation 31 disclosures and also for Regulation 29, where companies provide this particular disclosure to the stock exchange where they are listed. So with this, we will conclude the takeover provisions for listed entities and unlisted entities, the recent amendments made, friends. With regard to takeover for unlisted companies, while it is a welcoming note that additional provisions are given for majority shareholders to squeeze out minority shareholders, additional avenue being given, and the procedures are also well laid out. We have to see how these provisions are going to be effectively applied and how the judicial authority, the supervising authority being NCLT, is going to handle this given the time constraint, because 235, 236 we have discussed that it is a long process. If 230, 11 and 12 is going to be quick, then it's going to be an effective mechanism. Thank you very much, friends. Take care. Stay safe.